Welcome back. Now, the 2023 Standard Bank Joy of Jazz promises to be a celebration of music, culture and unity, bringing together jazz enthusiasts. Africa's premier jazz festival takes place at the Sandton Convention Center on the 29th and the 30th of September. An exciting lineup of local and international jazz stars include Makoy Mkhobata, Brass Gap, Gareth Harvey, Jabu Makubani, the Duduzo Makatini Trio, with Cuban drummer Francisco Mela. But for more on this vibe, we are now joined by Titi Luzipo, a special guest at the Joy of Jazz. Titi, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, Titi, you come from a musical lineage. You have a grandfather, Sibi Kwecha, who was a musical genius and a composer. When did the love of jazz music bite you?
I think it's always been in my genes, probably since I was born, and so that's what my mother tells me, and I believe it because she is an incredible musician herself, and so I think it bit me then, and I think I'm forever grateful for my parents, you know, for allowing me to take a path of music as opposed to any other thing. You know, as a young person, you're taught that you can go into what you want and all these skills that we have, but it's always important to have something to fall back on. And for me, that something to fall back on has always been music. And so the journey then continued into me progressing into the church choir and then obviously into school, studying music, and well, now we're here.
We certainly are here. What's your belief in terms of how music influences society? I mean, a lot of people experience music differently. Others, it's just a pastime. Others, it's for inspiration. But when you produce music, how much of an influence do you want that to be on society?
Thank you for that question. I've always believed that my music is a reflection of reality and a reflection of what our community is going through. I've always wanted to write music that evokes emotion. I've always wanted to write music that reflects reality. And I think this has been evident in the songs that I've written in the past, songs like Being Woman Part 1 and 2, where I speak about the eradication of femicide and, you know, just bulldozing patriarchy in its entirety. But also using my voice as a tool to heal and to restore, you know, what I feel has been broken in our society. We are facing a number of socioeconomic issues, and I think if music be that, you know, voice and that language to heal, then I think it's important that we use that tool, you know, and I think it's also great that we have festivals like Joy of Jazz, of course, you know, where we're able to express ourselves and we're able to heal people through music. We are coming from a very dark time in the country, and I think if there's anything that can heal people right now, it's definitely music.
And still on that tangent, I mean, you're quite worldly with your music. How important is it for you to have a global experience of sounds and culture and knowing what the rest of the world does in order for you to produce the music that will have that impact, that will speak to GBV and all these other societal issues that we face?
As a strong believer in social cohesion, I think it's so important that as musicians we don't box ourselves, you know. A lot of people say, oh, you're a jazz musician, or you're a soul, or you're Afro-pop, you know. I'm just a musician. I think it's important that the message and the legacy that we leave behind, I think for me is the most important thing. Of course, yes, you know, our industry forces us to find ourselves in genres, you know, and that's how we make money, and et cetera, et cetera. But of course, I mean, if we are to expand this entire thing called music, then I think it's important that we don't box ourselves, but to, you know, just expand and just explore every type and every corner and every genre, you know, in aid to heal and in aid to restore and in aid to speak to our community in a meaningful way.
And speaking of that aid and speaking to your community, you are now recently a lecturer at the University of the Northwest and teaching commercial music. Take us through that journey and what it's like to be able to share those experiences with young budding musicians.
I must say it's been an interesting journey because every time I look at the students, I feel like I'm looking at myself, which is not so long ago that I was in school. It almost feels like yesterday when I stood there actually not knowing what it is that I really, really, really want, but knowing that I just have this love and passion for music, and I just have this love of course, social cohesion and healing through music. And I think it's important that we allow children to be who they are and what they are, first of all. But also, I think it's important to equip them in knowledge, especially with the history of music and where it comes from. There's an era of every genre. There was an era of jazz, an era of classical. And I think it's so important that our South African history does not get confused in that. It's so important that our history is communicated properly and is communicated by people who are a part of it. I think for a very long time our history sort of got misguided and confused and sort of caught in a black cloud, you know, because of course, what we come from, which is apartheid and everything. But I think now that we are clear and that now that we have grown and we have better knowledge of what's going on in our country even currently, it's so important that we relay this message to the younger ones and so that they can live, you know, a meaningful life, and that the music that they write can also have a message in the future.
And also the business behind it, because a lot of the times when we see musicians and at the end of their musical lives, there's always an issue of how much they made or how much they lost during that journey. How important is it? I mean, you teach commercial music. How much of a part is that in your teachings?
So I think one of the reasons why I took this position at the Northwest University, of course, was because I'm an active musician. And it's so important, I think it's so encouraging to the students to see someone that they get to see on the other side of the screen as well, if, you know, if you get what I mean. And I think it's so important that for the longest time, the aspect of business and identity in music was lost for a very long time, especially in our days. You know, you get taught the theory, you get taught performance, you get taught ear training, and you keep it moving. And I think now our education system has advanced, and I'm so grateful for it, because then the business aspect is now being, you know, spoken about more vastly. And of course, the identity part of it, you know, being comfortable in your skin within your genre is being spoken about so vastly. And this is then evident in the courses such as commercial music, where students are no longer confined to a certain genre, but they are now able to even sing their own songs, you know, during exams. They're able to sing current music during exams, and I think it's such a wonderful thing. And I think it's so important that this narrative continues so that people are just comfortable in their own skin.
I mean, you have shared stages with people like George Benson and Kaifa Semenya. You're quite experienced, very worldly, and the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz is not the first time that you'll be participating in it, but you'd also be participating now as a headlining act. Talk to us about this year's installment of the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz.
It's a bittersweet moment for me. I think more so because of the segment that I have been asked to execute at the Joy of Jazz, and that is to pay tribute to a woman who, it's so hard to speak of her in the past, but she is still such an active person in me, and that is none other than the legendary Mom Gloria Bosman.
Wow.
Having been at the Joy of Jazz with her last year, paying tribute to Mam Sibongile Khumalo, and then a year later paying tribute to her, is something that I still cannot grasp, and I think may get me emotional even on stage, that it's such a surreal moment for me that a year later we paid tribute to Mam Sibongile, and a year later now I'm paying tribute to her. And I think, again, such history is so important. I think I'm grateful for the opportunity of, you know, that I was handed over the baton by this woman whilst she was still alive.
Right.
And so I carry it now with so much pride, and I'm super excited to be sharing also my music, some new music. She would kill me if I didn't. I remember last year when we paid tribute to Mam Sibongile Khumalo, the first song that was on the set list was actually one of my compositions. And this is because Mam Gloria believed so much in young musicians expressing themselves in the way that they want. And so I think this tribute for me is my dedication to her, but I think it's also just it's going to be such an amazing school for everyone, you know, and I think the chemistry on stage is going to be absolutely impeccable, and mostly because we were on that stage just a year ago together. And so I'm excited about it, and I'm really looking forward to it.
So are we. Thank you so much, Titi, for joining us this evening. We wish you all the best with your musical journey and with your students, and I truly believe that they're getting as much as they can from someone with such wealth of knowledge, musical knowledge, from someone like you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.